But generally, everyone who's working in the media space has a lot of learning to do on data protection. The 2019 Data Protection Act classifies anyone who processes data. We call a data processor. So basically, if you handle any person's information, you have a responsibility as far as the act is concerned. And currently, as things stand, there are obligations for anyone who is a data processor to follow. There are certain guidelines and certain expectations that the Act places on you as a data protector, as a data processor, that if you do not comply with, then you will find yourself on the wrong side of the legal framework. And what are those things? Number one is you have to get consent from anyone you're adding to a mailing list. I know we do this all the time. You put on an event, you have announced it on who people have bought tickets, then you have all these email addresses, and then you take those email addresses, and then you start sending them, your promo materials and your information. As far as the Act is concerned, you are breaking the law, because these people did not sign up to receive your newsletter. They signed up to attend your event. Getting consent, as far as the Act is concerned, is express. It has to be very specific. You have to inform anyone who is joining, or you are adding to a mailing list, that they are joining this mailing list to receive A, B, C, D. But if they are joining it to receive news updates, you need to state that you are joining to receive news updates, news information. News updates. Where this consent is not expressly provided, as far as the government of Kenya is concerned, you are infringing on these data subjects' rights. And this is important because this law draws from another policy called GDPR. I think you may have heard of GDPR. So if you are an artist working in Kenya and you are operating outside of this framework of the Data Protection Act, it is likely that you are also infringing on GDPR, which is it's a more strictly enforced law in Europe and in the developed world. So it's in the interest of anyone who is handling data to be compliant. The other aspect is, I think I mentioned this, that you have to tell fans how their data will be used. So as they're giving consent, you have to very clearly state you're giving your email address for this purpose or that purpose. It has to be very expressly stated. And then even when they do opt into your newsletter on your mailing list, they should be able to leave. If you've ever used MailChimp, there's always that button at the bottom for unsubscribe. It should be that easy. That if someone is on your mailing list and they're no longer interested in being on your mailing list, it should be very easy for them to leave. They should not be tied or forced to be within your network and your community out of their will. I think ethically this should go without saying, but you should not sell this data to a third party. So you have your mailing list, your network, people who have trusted you and they feel like because I like Papa's music, then I will subscribe to this mailing list, and then you take that mailing list and give it to Boni, right? That is problematic because if you sell data to a third party, there are compliance requirements and regulations which you need to adhere to, which come with their own set of complications. So what the law stipulates is that you should not, it prohibits you from giving this data about any person that you have to a third party. The other requirement is that if this person has been on your mailing list for a year or so, and they're no longer opening your emails, you should remove them from your mailing list. So every now and then you are required to do an audit of who is in your database, whether it's on WhatsApp or whatever, and you remove people who are no longer relevant to your mailing list. There are ways to ensure this, but you have an obligation. If you continue holding this person's information in your database, and for one reason or another, wake up one day and find themselves, they still receiving emails from this stranger, they don't know what it's about. Then, if they report you for it, and the regulator, which is the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, catches wind of this, you are liable to penalties. And I think the penalties, as far as artists are concerned, go up to 20,000 shillings for infringing on the data rights of subjects. So you'll either be fined for 20,000 shillings or risk being imprisoned for 6 months. For other institutions like schools, hotels, hospitals, the Act places much higher penalties, much higher penalties that they are expected to pay in these situations. So it's just important to familiarize yourself with these guidelines as an artist. How do you ensure that you are compliant, you are operating within this framework,